Welcome to In the Zone. I'm Craig Zimmerman, and we are on edition number 8 with a legend from St. Clair, Mr. Fred Shaw. Thank you for coming over, Mr. Shaw.
Thanks for having me.
You know, in our conversation when I called you, I said, you know, you mentioned that a lot of your former students are in their 50s, and I had to tell you that I was one of the former students from Washington Elementary, probably about 3rd grade.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when elementary program was set up, it was Trish Mihai and myself, and we alternated St. Clair and Marine City. Yep. Different years, and I had Ward Cottrell, I had Washington, I had Cherry Beach, which only had 3 classrooms in it, and it was quite an experience down there. And East China wasn't this way; it was a school then, not the offices. But it was great to visit all those places and get to know the kids. And you know, no matter where you are. Now, I started at Clintondale with a completely different kind of community, mixed, you know, races, and kids are the same everywhere.
Right. Yep.
And they just love gym.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. That was their favorite class, right? Yeah. So where was Fred Shaw born and raised? Well,
I was born in Grenada, Mississippi. Okay. And so I'm an old redneck from down south, and I was one of the first. My mom and dad were married for about a year, and he was in the Air Force, and they were transferred overseas and left me here with my grandma. So I lived in Biloxi, Mississippi for about a year until my mom came home, and they had an amicable divorce because she was a good old Southern girl and couldn't stand Europe, and my dad loved it. So I grew up in Mississippi for another year, and then we moved to New Orleans. And so I was in New Orleans for till I was 13 years old. We moved to Ohio. I actually got the name of Biddy Basketball from a program I was in New Orleans. It was nothing like what I ran here in St. Clair. But New Orleans was where I was all the way through junior high, and then my first 3 years of high school were in Ohio, and then I moved to St. Clair my senior year.
Okay, so you moved to St. Clair in your senior year.
Screaming and kicking because I was all set down in Ohio. I had done a lot of nice things and had a girlfriend down there I didn't want to leave, and of course then I met my wife who changed my mind.
Right. So you stayed and never left?
Never left, no.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Now you've got a wife and children and grandchildren, so let's hear about them.
Well, my oldest is a teacher. He works at a computerized school out on Dove in Michigan. Oh, okay. Yep. Learning Academy. Mm-hmm. He's married to a teacher. They have 2 children. One's a nurse and one's studying to be a doctor. My middle son has one of his own and one of the girls he married, married. So they have 2 children, and he's now in a blended family, and we love them all. Yep. And then I have a daughter who has 2 children, and both stellar athletes, Ian and Mia. Okay. And I should mention my grandson's name that's with Donnie. He's Donnie Jr., and he's becoming a stellar athlete as well.
What age are the grandkids roughly?
Well, it goes all the way from 9 to 24.
Okay.
And I have 7 of them.
Okay. So you got a pretty busy schedule as it is.
Well, Ruth Ann and I love to go see our grandkids play, so it won't be long before my oldest one is maybe producing some great grandkids. Right. We don't know. Yeah. Would be nice.
So are they local as far as the kids playing?
Yeah, everybody is local. The furthest one away lives in Lexington. Okay. That's Ricky, my oldest, and the other 2 are in St. Clair. Okay. And so we're fortunate to be able to see our grandkids without a great deal of travel.
That's good. Always a good thing. Now, where did you go to college?
Well, I went to St. Clair Community College at the time. It was called, and I went to play basketball, period. And it actually carried me along into my actual career. I got a scholarship there, and I went on to Eastern Michigan on a scholarship as well. Okay. And played ball there. Basketball being my favorite sport, that's naturally I gravitated to that and enjoyed the heck out of it. I had some great coaches along the way. Arv Watt in St. Clair here. Sure. He's in the Hall of Fame. Yep. Next was Jerry Gonzer, who was a backup tight end at Michigan, and he was at junior college, and then Dick Adams at Eastern Michigan. I learned so much from those three, and my high school coach in Ohio. You know,
those would be your mentors?
Those were my mentors. Yeah, actually, pretty much used a lot of their stuff when I first started, because and then I started going to clinics, started learning different things to use and different ideas, but pretty much what I do is how I play.
Okay. We
played full court basketball. You press. If you're pressed, you press back. But we pressed all the time. We wanted to play that, you know, not so-called 92 feet isn't quite that much in high school. But,
sure.
We wanted to play an up-tempo game, and my kids, if they had a shot and didn't take it, they were coming out.
Now, let me go to something today then, because it just reminds me of something. How is it from the eyes of Fred Shaw when you're in the gym watching a game today?
Completely different.
Right.
Yeah. Tony, Monty, and I were 20 years together. He was the boys' coach, and I was the girls' coach. His mantra was centered around getting the ball to the center and let him touch it at least one time before you took a shot. Mine wasn't quite that way. I was just a little bit more loosey-goosey on that. I wanted to take the shot if we had it. But the difference today is they play a scheme called 5 out or 4 out, and you hardly ever see the postman get the ball.
Right.
And it's faster.
Yes.
I mean, I thought we were fast.
Right.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You know, I love watching pro basketball on TV because it's like two bounces lightning. And they're down the court, and you don't realize how big they are until they watch a girls' game, and how much bigger the court looks. Yeah. Without those giants out there in the NBA. But it's fun. Yeah.
Now, so when you coached high school basketball, there was no three-point line back in the beginning, right? No. So I'm guessing the three-point line came to play somewhere in the middle to end of your coaching career?
Yeah, it came in, but it was toward the end of my career.
Okay.
I often wonder, the school record holder at St. Clair, I think it's 52 or 56 points. His name was Don Leach.
With no three-pointers.
And he was like 8 or 9 years ahead of me. I never saw him, but we used to play pickup basketball with him. He was a captain on the steamship. And he had a great one-handed set shot, but he almost always shot from outside. I wonder how many points he would have gotten
with a three-point line.
Yeah.
That's
I wonder how many. I had a game once, a once-in-a-lifetime game where I had 44 points, and I thought, oh, that's got to be the school record.
Right, it's never going to be. Right.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. So that gentleman was sort of like the Rudy Tomjanovich of his era.
Oh, Don Leach was a legend.
Yeah.
He was a legend in basketball, and he was just a tremendous guy. He wound up being a captain of a steamship.
Okay.
You know, I liked him a lot.
When do you think that you determined in your mind that you wanted to be a basketball coach?
Well, oddly enough, I ran out of eligibility because I had a mix-up in my transfer. So I had a year I had to sit out, and then I had a year of playing, and then the next year if I was in today's basketball, I would have been eligible. Okay. But I wasn't eligible. So my fraternity brother had a job at Ypsi St. John. He was the athletic director there, and he said, why don't you come over, and you're not playing this year, why don't you come over and coach this St. John's JV? My other fraternity brother was the head coach. So that was my first experience with it, and I went 15-1 using Arv Watt's offense, defense. I mean, it was just like what I had learned in high school. That's all that's what I knew for sure would work. I wasn't sure about some of the other stuff that I used later on in my career. But heck, we went 15-1. I thought, this is easy. I want to do this. Little did I know that it was a talent thing.
Right, players made a big difference.
Oh my gosh. It was funny. It was a junior varsity team, Ypsi St. John, and all my players were freshmen, except I had a junior that wasn't quite ready for the varsity. It was our center. And we ran exactly what St. Clair ran my senior year.
Okay.
And I thought, this is easy. I want to do this. So if in answer to your question, that's what got me going. I really never really wanted to be a head coach until I had sat on the bench and felt more comfortable that I knew more than what just that little bit that I knew.
Yep.
And so I attended clinics. We took, you know, I went to all kinds of things with Arv, and of course he was a great mentor.
Sure. One of the things that I noticed with the good coaches that I've come to know is what made them successful was they were more enthralled and into the preparation and the practice than the game is a byproduct of Monday through Friday type of a practice.
Exactly. You know, I found with girls, I coached boys for quite a while, and I tried to coach when I took the job when Coach Inkla left it to me. When I took that job in St. Clair, in the 7 years that preceded me, that basketball was now a regular sport, not the GAA type where they had 2 down here, 2 down here, and 1 that could roam. The girls didn't quite have the skill level they needed, you know, and I noticed I couldn't coach them like boys. I couldn't yell at them.
Okay.
I remember one incident. It was my 2nd year, and I had quit yelling. I decided that doesn't work.
Right.
So it was that part about coaching girls was a little different, but I was firm with them, you know, but I decided about halfway through my first year, I had to make this more fun than it was, because we didn't win the first year. I think we won 2 games, and I won another one in the tournament. They hadn't had basketball, and they'd had 6 different coaches in 7 years. And
so there was not much
There was
continuity.
no continuity.
Right.
It wasn't anybody's fault, you know. But I determined that if we were going to get any better, I was going to have to make the kids like coming to practice. And so I decided, well, when we warm up, I'm tired of walking in here, having them standing here with the ball under their arm. I want music on. So I began to play music, because basketball is a repetitious game. You need to repeat the layup, you need to repeat the dribbling, you need to repeat the jump shot until you get good at all 3.
Right.
And so we had these drills, and they were like 35, 40 minutes long, and I let the girls pick out the music to a point. I mean, if it got vulgar, I said, no, we're not doing that. So, but we turned the music up, and that's how I organized our first 40 to 45 minutes of practice every day. Repeat, 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 repeat. And then we would get into the what we were going to do against our next opponent. And I had a great scouting report on everybody we played.
Now, who helped you with that?
Arv and Arv would, and Tony. Okay. Tony was great. Tony would bring me back a scouting report that would be 8, 9 pages long. Okay. And I'm going, whew, I can't even remember this. How do I expect the girls to remember? Okay. Yeah. So I picked out the things that I really wanted to do against this next team, and that's what we did. And then, of course, we started going to camp. And we would go, first year we went to Michigan, and then the next 18 years we went to Michigan State and played the top teams in the state. And we usually get our hats handed to us there, you know, but we got better and better and better by going to camp. And we played 50 games. We played in the fall, which was a completely different time. And we got, by the time season started, we played 50 to 55 games.
Mid-season form came, you know.
Oh, we were ready. Didn't have to run to get them in shape, which they do today. And I knew who could play and who, you know, in certain moments. And usually carried 12 to 13 girls. Never cut anybody, but they, you know, that's. They knew amongst themselves who was going to go out. Right. Yeah, and I can't tell you how much I enjoyed coaching girls. They were delightful, because they would try to do everything you said. Good. Whereas boys, you had to use the bench a little bit. Sure.
Now, I would imagine if you walk through town on a given weekend, you can't walk very far before running into a former student.
Probably not, you know, because of the elementary school.
Right.
I was 12 years as an elementary phys ed teacher. Now, that means I've seen everybody from Marine City.
Right.
And everybody from St. Clair in that age group.
Yes.
Who are now 45 and 50 and 60, almost 60 years old.
Yes.
And I don't recognize about half of them.
Right.
Because, you know, they look a little different than they did in sixth grade or maybe even
as we all do.
grade. Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at it and I say, you coached in sort of what I'll call a golden era.
I did.
Because that teachers and coaches tended to do it longer back then too.
There was a waiting line for your job.
Sure.
You know, I didn't have any trouble filling my job. My assistant was wonderful, and he just morphed into the head coach job. And
who was that?
Dave Becker.
Okay. Yep.
He was with me. His daughter was one of my, you know, Hall of Famers, who is incidentally the principal at Marine City now.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
So she was a fine player, and Dave stuck with me after that. I mean, he was around a lot, you know, and helped me with AAU. We had the second largest AAU basketball program in the state.
Wow.
We had a hard time finding gyms for all of them. And coaches, because we didn't pay anything, you know, and we did rent some gyms. But
you look at the competition level too, from the standpoint of the amount of good coaches that were around in that time. There's quite a few, you know, whether it's boys or girls. I know myself, I could come up with 6 or 8 names that are Hall of Fame coaches.
Oh yeah.
I think, like, if I go from like Croswell, Lexington, Don Roberts was a great coach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
John Knuth did some basketball, didn't he?
Oh yes, he did. He had an undefeated team when, you know, he only did it for 1 year.
Right.
But
Paul
it was
Jackson.
a great team. Paul Jackson was one of my mentors, even though he was my age.
Yeah.
But I used to sit behind his bench when he would come to play us and watch him and listen to him in the huddle. And he had some great ideas. And the other real chief coach that I paid attention to was Oxford, who we couldn't get by.
Okay.
But he was my roommate for 18 years at Michigan State, and we drew up on napkins out of bounds plays, different things, and then of course we'd always meet in the regionals. And he would eat my lunch there because he was great. Ian Smith.
Okay.
Oxford was almost unbeatable. The other team that was in our way all the time was Flint Powers.
Okay.
With Kathy McGee. We would win the district quite a few times.
Well, that's a tough thing. You know, that's always been a question of thought of. And in many different sports, whether it's football or basketball, you get into some of these private schools that are from a metro area.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Now, I've always said, I understand that a Flint Powers or a Detroit Country Day or some of the other,
Detroit Mercy for girls.
Yeah.
Mary Cicerone at one of the Catholic girls' schools. Is a tremendous coach on top of the fact that the kids gravitate toward her.
Well, that's what I mean. If you're a pretty good program and you're a private school in, say, a Flint or a Metro Detroit, you're probably pulling from a 30-mile radius.
And what's changed about that today is we now have schools of choice.
Correct.
So the public schools are a little more on an even footing with it. But what John did at Marysville is just amazing. 10 state championships, and he had people probably bringing their kids in, but legally,
they had
moving into the area
girls,
because they want to. I mean, absolutely move their kids into an area so they could play for this super coach.
Well, I remember some in the mid '70s for Walt Braun. They moved to Marysville for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't say. I can't say that ever happened to us very much. I had a Finnish kid, transfer student, foreign exchange student, come in and play for me a little bit. She wasn't good enough to start, but she was an athlete. And when I coached track, she was my superstar.
Okay.
So we look basketball as far as that goes. Now with schools of choice, you can see some of these schools that are picking up kids.
Right.
You know, just like the Catholic schools and parochial schools have had that advantage on us for years, but now they don't have quite that advantage.
Right. Now, you started the Biddy Ball program, and it still goes on today.
It does. Darren Pietrkowski's running it. Runs it a little different, but boy, you know, he puts his heart and soul into it, and that's all you can ask from your coaches.
Right.
I started Biddy Ball, and what I didn't like about watching little kids play basketball is 2 or 3 kids with high skill level would never let the other kids never saw the ball.
Right.
So my idea we had like a 3-pass rule, and you couldn't press.
Yep.
And girls and boys were mixed in because obviously, selfishly, I wanted my girls to play with the boys because that was going to make them better. And I instituted that, and I think they've gone away from that, but it doesn't really matter because the coaches that are involved are passionate about it, and that's all you can ask.
Yep. So then you also coached track as well.
I did.
Now, did you handle certain specific events?
No, I had several different assistants, but my #1 assistant was Judy Springborn, who was my wife's best friend, but she was also the cheerleading coach. Okay. So my basketball athletes generally went out for softball. Okay. But I got some great kids from the basketball program. One of the Cole Morgan girls came down and threw the shot and disc, and Sherry Becker held the record in high jumping for a while. You know, so I did get some of my basketball kids down, and we finished second, probably 10 of my 15 years. Okay. We didn't have a girls cross country program, and I couldn't run one because it was during basketball season. Sure. So we would just give away the points and the distances, and
just couldn't make it up.
We couldn't make it up. We had great athletes come out.
Who was typically first?
Marysville or Algonac.
Okay. And Algonac has had a strong program for a lot of years. Yeah. I talked to Tom Brenner Jr., who does the cross-country program, and I learned something in talking to Tom about the scoring and the strategy that goes into it. And the same thing goes on with track, I know. You know, as far as keeping track of where your athletes are, who they're going against, where you can pull points.
I'm very much involved with watching track, cross-country, because my daughter-in-law is a head track cross-country coach up in Croswell. Okay. And she's going to be in the Hall of Fame. She's amazing. Okay. She's like the Pied Piper, just like John Davison was before Brenner. Yes. And I'm sure Brenner's going to make it too, because he's doing a great job. Yeah. You know, and I think he'll have longevity, which is the key to making Hall of Fame. Right.
The interesting thing that I didn't know about cross country was how he said you slot, you know, if my #5 guy beats their #5 and 4 beats 4 and 3 beats 3, I can't get beat.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of strategy that goes into cross, and I've gotten, so Rick, my oldest, helps with his wife's team, and they've got an amazing program up at Croswell. Okay. It was, you know, of course, Croswell, I think, and St. Clair are probably the 2 premier cross teams. Marysville's pretty good too. Yeah. Now, would you say you mastered the traits of winning from your mentors? Yeah. What I am most proud of is the way my kids behaved on the court. I won the sportsmanship award as a player 3 times in 3 different schools. Because I never argued with the referees. I chit-chatted with whoever I was playing with, and I didn't trash talk. It was before trash talk. Right. Yeah, and we'd giggle with each other and talk. And I wanted my kids to play extremely hard and run through a wall type of thing. But I wanted them to run and get the ball for the referees. And I had 3 rules. Look, you play, I'll coach, they're going to ref. Open your mouth to the referee 1 time and you'll be on the bench. And I said, I will do that as well. I will not talk to the officials. And I didn't. I was very loud. You could hear me down the street yelling defensive and offensive signals. but I would not question a referee, ever. I did get 2 technical fouls during my career, and my career was a long one, so
yeah, it's pretty good
that's
record.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
And one of them was not my fault. It was from somebody behind me. Swore.
Referee thought it was you.
Thought it was me. Ran over and teed me up, and I said, "What was that for?" He said, "You want another one?" "No, sir." I sat right back down. And the other one was when that rule on, you would probably remember this. There was a rule in basketball where they were getting tired of guys getting on the referees, so they made you sit down.
Yeah.
You could stand up to applaud your good play, which I did. And usually on the way down, I would yell out a signal, 22, 13, whatever press we were in. And a guy in the regional teed me up. I said, "What was that for?" He said, "Coach, you can't stand up." I said, "I was sitting down. You know, I'm supposed to be able to stand up." And he says, "You want another one?" You know, that was usually the report.
Right.
No.
Twice.
So those were my 2 technicals. But I never, if I wanted to say something to the officials, it was at halftime. And usually it was, hey, you know, look at the discrepancy in the fouls here.
Right.
I know we play hard, but not that much harder.
So are you going to just about every sport there is now with grandkids?
I do, yes.
Okay.
And actually my granddaughter, Laurel, Rick's daughter, is strong, and she's only 5'1", but she's a weightlifter. So I've learned a lot about Croswell, Lexington has a weightlifting program, and not too many schools around here do. But she could deadlift 250.
Is that right?
And she's not very big. I mean, she's not muscular. Yeah. She's muscular, but she's trim.
Okay.
You know, so it's amazing. Yeah, that was the sport that I hadn't seen ever before, and I've gone to a lot of those, which was fun. Okay.
Now you went on to do a couple other things other than teaching.
For sure.
But you came back to teaching.
Yeah, the thing I'm probably most proud of, we really got into it in the middle school as a themed base 6th grade year for those kids. And one of the things we put in the theme was dancing, which goes with phys ed, which is my major, rhythm. So we taught, and an idea came to me when I was watching my own kids at a dance, and about 3/4 of the kids were standing on the sideline just kind of clapping to the music, and they weren't dancing.
They didn't know how to dance.
Didn't know how to dance. So I made up my mind that we were going to teach the kids to dance. So every kid that went through 6th grade, beginning at Eddy Elementary, when I was a 6th grade teacher there, it was an after-school program then. I taught them this. I think I taught the kids at Eddy square dancing, and then went from there. But they grew into a major thing that we presented at the middle school conference, and I'm very proud of that. It was I taught kids to line dance, the slow dance, proper dance etiquette. And one of the funniest things, if you ever came to watch it, was I made them go across. The boys sat over here, girls sat down there. When slow dance thing came, they had to go across and ask. It was boys' choice or girls' choice, and you couldn't say no, because that's what puts kids out.
Right.
You know, they're afraid they're going to get turned down.
Rejected, right.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to have any of that. So I had my 6th grade team, all of us were right there watching to make sure they all, and I said, don't point at somebody, go over and say, may I have this dance? And it was quite the program. Yeah,
from a life aspect, that's a good thing to teach somebody.
Oh, most of my kids, I'll tell you, there wasn't one that didn't know how to dance. If they didn't dance, it wasn't that.
Right.
So, and then we had another thing that we did was the Dick Groff and Don Zuloff and Tony, Monty. We put on a mimicked program to the Gus Macker.
Yep.
It was held in the square. First, it was at Kuhn's auto dealership on the corner, and then we moved it into the mall. And we built all of us pitched in and built these great backboards that were custom made from Macker Designs.
Yep.
And it grew to be 200. There were 200 teams entered, and it got way too much for us. So we turned it up, turned it into the junior college.
I remember
that.
Let
them run it.
Didn't Mr. Groff sponsor it from the Shoe House?
It was the Shoe House.
Yeah, H-A-U-S.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tournament. Jim Fredericks was involved. I'm leaving somebody out, I'm sure, but it was several people that loved basketball.
Yeah.
You know, so those were the couple of outriders for me in my athletics that I loved. And of course, I coached Little League like most dads do, and Carl Sullivan and I coached the Indians 3 years past the time when our kids were gone, and then we went out. The two of us went out and did Babe Ruth.
Okay.
So, you know, I enjoyed that.
What do you think of the new complex out on 30?
Fred Moore. I think it took some great vision to build it, and thankfully we were able to have people in town donate things.
It's a great complex.
Yeah, and I just think it's wonderful. I mean, you go out there, you can't find a parking place.
Oh yeah, that's a nice facility.
Yeah, I enjoy watching ball out there.
You go out there during the summertime?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you've been retired for a while.
I have.
Besides watching the grandkids, what else?
Oh, I worked. I didn't. You know, I've been working since I was 11. I worked at golf courses, Pine Shores and Marysville.
Okay.
Marysville, 12 years. Pine Shores, a couple. But when Omicron came across, I decided at my age, it didn't make sense.
Sure.
I wasn't vaccinated at that time, and I just was reluctant to go down and be exposed.
Sure.
You didn't know who.
Yeah.
You know, they don't wear masks or anything like that, and so I retired from that, and I haven't done anything for the last 3 years except my wife's honey-do list.
Okay. Do you play golf?
I do.
Okay.
I taught golf at Marysville.
Okay.
Mostly middle school all the way down to 4th grade through the Marysville Rec Department. By the way, I should mention, speaking of rec departments, Treese Hawkins here was just a major help to me in Biddy Ball.
Okay.
Without her, the first couple of years I did all the registration and stuff, and then I met Treese, and she's such a nice lady, and she helped me out considerably with
Well, I
Biddy
think
Ball.
in a lot of these programs like you put together over the years, it really sort of, the terminology takes a village. I mean, you need to have a bunch of, you need a bunch of people working together.
Had I not had my boys coach pitch right in and just wholeheartedly bring his team and my team together to coach the kids, plus, just people volunteering to help sell donuts out in the hallway.
Yep.
And it was quite a successful deal.
Now
we had people bring them down from Port Huron and Marine City and Algonac, and then eventually they started their own, which is fine. So Darren's going to do a great job with it.
Oh yeah.
And Darren isn't the only one. The boys coaches will help too.
Yep. I've already got a couple calls in for a couple of those guys on.
Yeah.
You gave me the number of Coach Monty. I got a hold of Coach Monty.
Yeah.
He'll be back June 1st.
Well, so. Coach Monty and I, he lived with me while he was having his house built when he was at Croswell. I met him at junior college when we were both assistant coaches up there. And I knew he was a tremendous coach. And so when our job opened up, he applied for it and got it and lived with us for a year while he was having his house built. But he and I are simpatico. He coaches different than I do, no question. I mean, he's kind of a disciple of Bobby Knight, whereas I'm much more, especially with girls, I tend to be, try to get them in a good humor. I've done some crazy things with the girls, trying to loosen them up when they're tight. You can see it. I mean, we were a much better team, and all of a sudden we can't hit the broadside of a barn, and I'll crack a joke or this probably embarrassed Jenny, but I walked into Richmond's locker room, and we were way better than them. We were behind by half. I made a couple points at halftime, and I spied a pair of women's underwear on the floor, and I threw them on my head, and instead of going in and railing on them, I wasn't going to do that. And they were just dying laughing, and she gave me at the banquet at the end of the year, she made a custom-made women's panties with a bill on it.
You get away with that in the 80s. I don't think today, you know.
They were in hysterics, and they loosened them up, and they came out and played great in the second half. We won easily.
Okay. I think we got her mostly covered. Well, a couple things here. You did some football coaching as well.
I did. I hated leaving the football program because I loved the guys in it, but it was in the fall.
Right.
If I was going to be the girls' basketball coach, and I wanted to be a varsity coach.
Yeah.
By that time, I felt like I knew a lot more than people I had seen coaching the girls. And
we talked earlier about the football program, and Ben Vitakevich was the coach.
Yeah.
And he was a good coach.
Oh my God, he was tremendous. The years that I was with him, he would have gone to the playoffs. The way it's set up now with 6 wins, we won 6 games every year I was with him, but 1.
Yep.
And he couldn't get by Marysville. 1 year we did.
Right.
And then we didn't win the championship because that year Chippewa Valley had a really good team, and they beat us.
I think that was 80 or 81, I think.
It was Dave Landon and that bunch of boys. Gary Blanchard was quarterback. And there were a lot of other, Muggleberg in line, and we had some, I had come to the varsity with them because we were undefeated at the JV level. And I love that bunch of boys. They were talk about good football players, and they love football.
Yep.
And they responded to your, voice a lot of the times.
And what I noticed most about a good program with a good coach and longevity comes good human beings after graduation.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. If I look at my girls, of my Hall of Honor girls, there's 21 of them, and 15 of them have coached basketball.
Right.
And they haven't all stayed with it, but they've all taken a shot at it. And,
yep.
I'm so proud of them, and all of them.
Yeah.
Well, quite a few of them are teachers.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you for coming to CTB6.
I enjoyed every minute of it.
If you know of anybody else that needs to be on this program, kindly let me know.
I'm glad you've got Tony coming in because you'll enjoy him. He's quite the basketball guy. And he doesn't look a day older than he did when he retired.
Yeah.
There's some. I do hope you get some females in, like we were talking about. Certainly Susie. And there's some other good female people that you might want to interview that have added to the, the St. Clair program.
Sure. If anybody, as I've mentioned before, if anybody knows of somebody that needs to be or wants to be on this program, or you recommend somebody, my personal number is 586-707-5811, and we'd love to interview them.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
I enjoyed it.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yep.